G'day guys, welcome to this month's Australian property market update. In this update, we're going to take a look at some of the major key performance indicators surrounding the Australian property market so that you can keep a finger on the pulse and make better decisions as an investor.
Now, despite April being a bit of a weird month with Easter, school holidays, Anzac Day, and a long weekend up here in Queensland, the Australian property market remained extremely resilient, and there's some interesting information coming through the data. So let's get stuck into it.
So thank you again to our friends over there at CoreLogic who put together so much incredible data. This month, when we're looking at the monthly capital growth rates, Perth, Adelaide, and Brisbane, our favourite city, are still absolutely kicking ass. Sydney's done okay. But what was interesting as well, for the first time in a while, we've seen the tide beginning to slowly turn in Darwin as well, which has been a long descent down since pretty much the last mining boom ended.
Yes, go Darwin. It's been some time since we've seen that market go up a little bit. And although it's just a little bit, 0.6% over the month of April, it's still better than what we've seen in previous months. Now, to look at the capital cities on more of an annual basis, we are still seeing those three markets with the strongest monthly capital growth rate, seeing the strongest annual capital growth rate. So Perth leading the charge, followed closely by Brisbane and then Adelaide, and then all of the other ones starting to see a little bit of improvement, with Darwin still down a little bit, but hopefully we start to see that move into the green as time goes by.
Now, in terms of the vacancy rates in Australia, no surprise at the moment. They're still super undersupplied at the moment, with Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth having some of the lowest rates that I've seen in recorded history. So according to the guys over there at the Australian Financial Review, I can't see the vacancy rates changing anytime soon, with heaps of people coming into the country. And according to those guys, a bit of an undersupply from a property perspective still.
And to add on to that, they were also saying that they don't really believe a change in the interest rates is actually going to have any impact on the supply versus demand in the Australian property market. And they actually believe that we might see some property reforms, not too sure what that means yet, but to see what they could potentially change to make it a bit easier on the tenants with these tight vacancy rates and increasing rental returns.
Yeah, I've definitely, like everyone else in the property industry, got a few ideas there, but I'll have a rant in a future podcast episode with you about my thoughts on reform.
Now let's get stuck into the auction clearance rates. Now this was just for the last week in April, which we did have the school holidays in New South Wales and Victoria. We had the Anzac Day, which I think countless people took that extra long weekend, myself being included as well. And looking at that, the auction clearance rate dropped across the whole country, across every single capital city. And, you can see that with Sydney only recording a 52% auction clearance rate, which was the highest city around the country. Looking at like Brisbane and Perth, they were sitting below 30% for the auction clearance rate. So naturally, you would generally see that increase again. So we'll see in the next month market update where things look now that school's back and we're past those public holidays.
Now, what I love at the moment is, even though things improved in the last month on almost every single measure, Australian consumer confidence fell by 2 more basis points, putting us at a position now where we're almost on par with the last GFC and COVID in terms of how we're feeling, although Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide are going absolutely off their trees at the moment. Again, it's just a strange world that we're in right now, where people are feeling so bad when so many positive things are happening for investors and homeowners around the country.
Now, taking a look at the unemployment rate, it did rise just marginally over the last month from 3.8% to 3.9%. So still really, really low unemployment rate compared to the long-term average of 6.62. We can see it and feel it up here in Queensland as well. There's constantly job openings, there's constantly signs in the coffee shops and really everywhere at the moment. So plenty of jobs around the country.
I was reading something in the last couple of weeks actually where they said the labour rates in Brisbane for the average trade up here has just gone over $100 an hour, which is phenomenal when you think about that at the start of COVID being half that, and now Brisbane having the strongest trade labour rates in the country as we set up for the Olympic Games in 2032.
Now, to look at listings around the country, they have dropped quite considerably over the month of April, which is no wonder with Easter, school holidays, Anzac Day. There's just so much going on and people aren't really thinking about listing their property. So there was only 239,000 listings available in the month of April, which is really below those longer term averages. So I'm sure we'll see a bit of a shift in May. God, that was a tongue twister.
That was a tongue twister. You got that out, hey?
Just.
The last data point that we wanted to hit this month is a positive one, and that is the number of properties being sold under distressed conditions in Australia month on month and year on year has reduced again, which is a positive sign that even though rates are high, even though the cost of living is high and it is pretty brutal out there at the moment, the average Australian is managing to keep hold of their homes and their investment properties.
Really nice to get another pulse check as to how the Australian property market is going. We've got some positive news out there for sure. Still weird to see that sentiment reading being so low at the moment. Hopefully we start to see that turn around in the coming months. But as always, we love to finish up these market updates with a gold nugget and some positive news. So what's a gold nugget? Give it to us.
So the gold nugget this week is actually from looking back at some of the history. So as we do, we get the property stuff and the data stuff. Simon and I were looking at a Homely report which looked at Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth between 1976 and 2016. And what I was looking for is, well, what actually happened in Sydney around those Olympic Games? With the 2032 Olympic Games coming in Brisbane, I'm personally getting more and more interested in this market again myself. And what I discovered is that between 1997 and 2003, in their data set, house prices in Sydney went up 97%. Now, what was interesting, in the 3 or 4 years leading into the Olympic Games, we saw most of the growth. In fact, 60% of that 97% growth was in the 3 years leading up to it. And then in the 3 years or so after it, we saw the remaining 37%. So as always, we like to wrap it up with a bit of a positive piece of news from the last week. What have you found?
The funny thing is, I pulled this article from the Australian Financial Review and the headline was actually stating bleak news for Australian property, but I started reading it, and for me as a property investor and for most people watching this who are exposed to the property market would find it really interesting. Now, it was talking about the cash rate being held. So the RBA had their meeting early May and they have held the cash rate at 4.35%, which is great news. But what they were stating is, like, because of the labour shortages, because of the high construction costs, because of the massive amounts of population growth, we still have a lot of supply and demand issues. And what they were saying is they do expect rents to continue to rise and property prices to continue to rise as we move forward throughout 2024. It's so funny what you read in the media these days. You got this doom and gloom headline, but to me, some really positive information in the article.
So that wraps up another property market update for the month of May. We wish you guys all the best. We hope these updates are helpful. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Please give us a thumbs up. Please comment if there's anything positive that you'd like added into our market update so we can bring better information to you. And please share this with a friend, family member or colleague that is looking to get a pulse check on the Australian market. We can't wait to continue to bring you these updates every month.
Might be time for me to go get a trade, eh? just put that in the bloopers for sure.
Oh, man. Just $100
an hour.
Look at your laugh, eh? Just
Time to go get a trade, mate.
like you wanted to laugh at you.